Okay. Okay, it looks like most of us are signed in that are going to. So let me put these things out of my way. Okay, we are on the dashboard. We're going to click on biology. We're going to go to current lessons. And then down to week 2. Click on my little gummy guys spot. Then we're going to go to Wednesday. I did not rename it. I think I probably should. So let me rename it now before I forget. We'll say notes, project, biochem. Okay. So yesterday, or actually Monday, I assigned a project that was elements in the human body. I had a student in 10th period, mind you, that reminded me I have already given this project, and I know when I usually give it as cells, but I guess my brain is no longer able to contain information from way back when. So it was in August that I gave the assignment. There are a few people in here that do not have me, or did not have me as first semester teacher. So if you are that person and you want to do that project for a grade, you can contact me to let me know. If you are a current student who still wants to do the project I assigned, then you need to do 2 different elements you haven't already done. However, I have created a new assignment here, and I'm going to go over that in just a second. The first thing we're going to do is I want you guys to take this quiz for practice. That's optional. I'm not putting it as a grade. And then here are macromolecule PowerPoint where we're going to take our notes. And then the third thing today is to talk about the project. So, as I said, the biochemistry unit, this is a different project than I assigned Monday. The Monday's assignment I had already given first semester. I'm really sorry for the error. That was not intentional. I've changed the elements of human body assignment to an extra credit assignment. So if you completed it, you can accept it as extra credit. Or if you have an issue with me changing it 2 days later, you can contact me and we can discuss the options. The maximum points for bonus will be 10 points. If you have concerns, please just discuss it with me personally, and then we can see how we can accommodate those needs. All right, I didn't put the assignment here, so let's link it, insert link. I thought I already did, but maybe not. Okay, it's down here. All right, so here's the assignment. You get to choose. I didn't put the link in there either. Was I sleeping? Did I did this? Must have been. Okay. I've actually changed the due date a little bit, so that might help too. We're going to go ahead and click on the assignment for this new project. Let me make it a little bigger. You have two choices. Why can't I get bigger? Okay, anyway. The first project is you can create a flyer, a brochure, a cartoon, write a song, a rap, create art, or anything that you think you can do to educate someone about the 6 elements in the human body that we've discussed. These are the 6 right here. So you can do it however you want to, but you're working on a plan that you can teach these elements and how they're used in the human body to someone else. Okay? And I'm thinking child younger than you, let's say middle school or lower. That way you can, because you should have enough knowledge to be able to do that. You have the freedom to do as you wish for this assignment. Don't get too caught up on the directions. Be creative. That's kind of the fun thing when people throw out projects. Hey, you can do what you want. This is what you must include. You must include all 6 elements. You must research how the elements are used in the human body. You need to know how the body is made up of these 6 elements. Explain elements, atoms, molecules, and compounds. Also include the symbols of each element in your project. So the symbol like H, O, C, N, C, CA actually, and P. Okay, that's the first project. The second project, you have 5 different assignments to do, and they're not huge. Like this one here is to go to this website. These questions are harder, so you may have to go through it once. You're going to take this quiz. You may have to take this quiz once and then research and find out the correct answer, or however you want to go about that. And then once you're done to the end, you're going to take a screenshot of your answer. This one here is a quizzes. You guys are quite familiar with the quizzes. Make sure you take a picture of your percentage or your points, how many points you earned, or how many points out of total you earned. Some people send me something that doesn't have anything on it, so it's hard. The third one, you're going to go here to this site. You're going to read this here, and you're going to, it's not very long, you're going to read it, and you're going to go, you're going to read and follow the link listing the elements, how the elements are used in the human body. I just want a summary of it. Summary of the ones that are used, these 6, right? Okay, the last link or last assignment is to research and find 5 interesting facts about the human body as it relates to the following 6 elements. And then you're going to submit that assignment. So you can pick project 1 or project 2. If you still want to do the initial project, you need to contact me independently to let me know what you're going to do. If you're new to me, it doesn't matter what you choose. If you were with me first semester, you've got to choose 2 different elements than you already did. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so let's go back. We're going to take some notes today. I won't take up too much of your time since you need to get started on that project. I didn't mention the due date. Let's go back and look at the due date. If we go down here, we're going to see the due date here. I assigned it today, which is the 13th, I think. Biochem project. I didn't name it the same as elements in the human body because it's a little different. Still worth 50 points. The first due date is the 22nd, and the final due date is the 29th. So you almost have 3 weeks to get this done. So you have plenty of time to either let me know what project you're going to do. If you let me know what elements you plan to do. If you want to continue the project for the elements of the human body, you won't get extra credit for it if you're doing it for this project. Okay. If you're doing this project, you need to listen to me right now. But if you want to do this project here, you either have to be brand new to my class and have never done it before, or you have to tell me what new 2 elements you're going to do that you didn't already do. Okay. But if you want to do it for the extra credit, happy to accept it. And then you'll do this project as well. So that is completely up to you how you want to do it. And the reason, and I said on my email that I sent that I was making it due today. Now, all of the due date's the same as it was. There's no reason it has to change. I originally thought, well, I'll just get it behind us. But if people want to do it for extra credit, that's great. Does 10 points sound fair? Anyone? 10 points sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll leave that as it is then. And then let's go ahead and go to our notes. All right. Go back to week 2. And then we're going to go to Wednesday. My screen just got bright all of a sudden. Weird. I'm going to go to this link here. This has the notes for what we're going to talk about. We're talking about macromolecules. Macro means big, okay? Some of this we've already gone through, so you'll just hear a repeat of what we've talked about, but it's, it's part of the notes. I want to make sure notes cover everything that we expect you to know for the test. So matter. Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. That should be something you already know. If you don't know that vocabulary, you probably should write that down and memorize it. Basic unit of building blocks of an atom is matter. What are some of the examples? So we talk about an atom being the smallest unit of matter, and a cell is the smallest unit of life. Which one's smaller? Which one's smaller, an atom or a cell? I got opposite answers on here. Yeah, it's an atom. Because a cell is made up of billions of atoms, okay? So keep that in mind. Don't get the atom and the cell confused. Yeah, it gets confusing. That's why I kind of mentioned it. So it's not a big deal. Here are the 3 states of matter. You have solid, liquid, gas. There is one more that's called plasma, but plasma doesn't exist on the periodic table as a at room temperature for an element. Most of them have to be excited to the state they turn into plasma. So that's why it's not listed here as a 4th state, but it is a 4th state. When you have a solid, it can be heated and turn into a liquid and then to a gas. There are some elements that are already liquid at room temperature, and there are elements that are solid at room temperature, and there are elements that are gas at room temperature. So if they're already this way because heat causes these states of matter, then they would cool them down to cause them to go into the opposite state of matter. As we talked about, atomic structure, atoms are made up of 3 particles, protons in the nucleus. They're the purple ones. They are not purple. They're blue. Protons are blue in this little thing. Here's your little key. They're positively charged. Neutrons are neutral. The reason why they knew neutrons were there because the mass of the atom, there was only half the number there because it was only measuring the mass of the protons. Most of the mass of the atom is contained right here in the nucleus. The electrons really don't have much mass. So if I say the mass of an atom is 12, half of that is for the protons, half of that is for the neutrons. And that's how they figured out something else was there. Because when they measured the mass of the atom, it was only showing up half of the number. And they're like, well, wait a minute, how's that possible? Something else has to be there. So that's when they came up with the name neutron. Those don't have any charge. Electrons are surrounding the outside. If you look at this, they kind of have a shadow of like an energy level or an orbital, but it also kind of looks like a cloud. That's because electrons don't just travel like in orbit, like a planet. They actually move in all different directions, zipping around fast all over the place. So that's why it's called the electron cloud, or the atomic cloud model, because they move around in all different directions, not just in a path like, hey, let's follow each other around the planet. They don't do that. Okay, we talked about the elements. The elements are pure substances. We know they are pure because they've been tested, and this periodic table gives you a list of those. An atom and an element are the same thing. If I say atom, I'm talking about a particular atom. If I say element, let me say it opposite of what I just said. Atoms are all atoms on the planet. They have protons, neutrons, electrons, which are subatomic particles. That would pertain to any atom on the periodic table. If I want to be specific, I would give you the name, or I'd tell you what the protons are. The protons tell you what element you have, like in the game we played a few days ago. They're represented by 1 and 2 letter symbol, which we've already talked about. Common elements in biology include carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. And I believe those are our 6 that we talked about. We've already talked about chemical bonding. It's where the elements join one another. We talked about covalent and hydrogen and ionic bonding. This is just following through with that conversation. We talked about chemical bonds are made up of sharing or transferring of electrons. That's sharing would be covalent, transferring would be ionic. There's just some examples. Remember we talked about there are 8 in the final orbital. We could draw the Lewis structure or the dot diagram to show the 8 in the outside. Here's an example of an ionic bond where the electron is actually transferred to the element. So one becomes positive, one becomes negative. Because this element gave away an electron, it became positive because it has more protons in the nucleus than it has electrons. And then this one gained it, so it has more electrons than it has protons. So you'll see that charge here. See where it transferred? They were equal. They had no charge when they started, but once this one transferred the electron, it became +1. Once this one accepted the electron, it became -1. Okay, sharing, they just toss them back and forth like playing a game. One may be stronger than the other, and that's called polarity. Polarity is that table that we looked at that allowed us to see that one is stronger than the other. The one that's stronger keeps it for longer. That rhymed. Okay, we talked about the properties of water. Water is a molecule, H2O. It looks like Mickey Mouse, doesn't it? So the atoms can sit on top of each other, causing that surface tension and cohesion. But what happens is oxygen is incredibly strong compared to hydrogen. So it is able to keep the electrons from hydrogen longer, but it does cause this shape to occur. But they are all sharing their electrons. Hydrogen is borrowing from oxygen. This hydrogen is borrowing from oxygen, and oxygen is borrowing from both hydrogens. Polarity, again, is talking about one being stronger than the other. So in this case, hydrogen's a little weaker than oxygen, so oxygen's able to take those electrons for longer. Hydrogen bonding is just saying hydrogen's present. Hydrogen is an incredibly weak bond, so it's easy to break. That's why water breaks apart so easily and is like a universal solvent. We talked about cohesion and adhesion, where they stick together. There's billions of little water molecules stuck together, our little water bug that we talked about. Properties of water, it has a high heat capacity. That's why we use it a lot. We boil water and it still is water. We can turn it back into water, right? Density, water, it's solid state. Ice is less dense than the liquid under it. That's why ice floats. Water is considered to be the universal solvent, which means it dissolves things. So when we put something in water, it dissolves it. If I have paint on my hands, I use water. It comes off because it's a universal solvent. Other things are examples too. We talked about acids and bases. We talked about pH, the 7, I think I've got pictures of that. Let's see, here's our ions. See the positive and negative ions in the solution. The positive ions are going to be the hydrogen ions. That tells us how acidic or basic something is. The OH ions also do the same. Down here is our scale. If it's neutral, it's 7. If it's above 7, then it becomes basic. If it's below 7, it becomes acidic. Usually acidic things are going to be sour, taste sour. If they're basic, they kind of have a slimy feel to them. Here's the scale here too to help you. This is going over the OH ions and the OH negative, the H positive, telling you which is acidic, which is basic. We talked about that, I think, 2 days ago. Okay. Human body fluids are kept between pH of 6.5 and 7.5. So it's staying within that neutral range. It's not far off neutrality. If pH is lower, it will affect chemical reactions that occur in the body. So if it gets too acidic, it will cause the body to, so for me, I sometimes get acid reflux, and that's because my stomach has too much acid in it. Your stomach already has acid to dissolve your food, but when you have too much acid, it kind of backs up and comes up your throat. And I don't know if anybody has that, but it's not fun. Tums resolve my issue most of the time, or staying away from foods that do that, such as hot Cheetos. Hot Cheetos, they're great. I love them. They taste so yummy, but afterwards they are no fun. Organisms use buffers, weak acids or bases, to mute the effect. So what happens is when you have an acid and a base, so for example, I said I had too much acid in my stomach, a TUM is a base. So when I drop that TUM in my tummy after eating it, it kind of neutralizes that acid to prevent it from causing trouble. It's important to maintain that homeostasis. So my body tells me when the acid's coming up my throat, this isn't fun, don't like it, how do I fix it? So then I take a TUM that balances it back to homeostasis. Okay, so now we're getting into our biomolecules, also known as macromolecules. They're called macromolecules because they're huge. They're not tiny little atoms or a couple of atoms together. These are huge molecules. There are 4 of them. They play an important role in life. The 4 are lipids, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, and proteins. Those are the 4 you should have had in your homework yesterday that you researched. Here is a picture of what they each look like. This should look familiar to you. And this one here should as well. If you've ever seen a protein, that's what they look like. And this is carbohydrates. This here is coming from a cell. If you see the circle, it's an animal cell. And the outside of it, as we talked, the heads and tails are there. And that is the phospholipid bilayer. It's made of fat. So that's what lipids are, fats. Nucleic acids, this is a strand of DNA. What makes us who we are, right? So keep that in mind. The macromolecules, when we look at them, all macromolecules are made up of monomers. Mono meaning one. So we're saying they're made up of monomers, one single unit, that are bonded together as polymers. So they take these monomers, these one little units, and stack them all together to make a polymer. So a poly means many, okay? Mono one, poly many. So you need to remember those terms because you will be expected to know those in different ways as we continue. These are considered organic molecules because they contain carbon. Anything that has carbon in it is either living or has been alive. So you need to remember that. These are all things that need to be, these macromolecules are needed for survival. So we have to have those. Okay, we are going to stop there. I think that's quite a bit that we've covered today. Are there any questions? A lot of this was review. And that's, that's good. But I want to make sure that you understood everything we talked about. Is everybody okay? Are there any questions about what we talked about? Okay, I will save the recording from this class so that we have that in case we want to reflect back to these notes and hear them again or pick a spot to listen to. That way you have it as a resource in case you need some more backup. But at this time, that's all I have for today. Make sure you use your time wisely and going back and deciding which project do you want to do. Are you going to stick with the one I already gave you? Remember, if you do stick with that to turn in for the 50 points, not for extra credit, then you're telling me as a previous student, if you're in my semester 1, you chose 2 new elements. If you are brand new to my class, you can choose whatever you want, but you are still allowed to turn that in for the project, but you need to let me know if you are a previous student from semester 1, what 2 different elements are you choosing than you did the first time. I don't want you to just copy paste your project. And then if not, then you can do the biochemistry project where you have 2 choices. You're either going to create a lesson by using any resource you wish to communicate to students 6 different elements and how they're used in the human body. You can look at those requirements on the assignment. The second one is to go to the 4 links, complete those assignments, and the 5th link is to give me a summary. So, any questions about what's expected? All right, you have the rest of the time to work on whatever you need to get done, whether it be the assignments that are coming due or whether it be the project. Make sure you take notes. For me, writing down notes is important. So don't just hear me say the words and not hear what you need to know, because it is possible by the time we get to this test, you may be in the classroom. If we are all in the classroom together, or you take the test on the day you're present, you will not have notes to be able to look at. So you need to start preparing you for the in-class expectations of you won't have something to look up. You'll be in the classroom taking the exam. All that's still in the air, and I have no idea when we'll all be back together, but from what I'm hearing, it might be pretty quickly. Okay? If you don't have any questions, you're free to go. If you entered late, I am saving this video, so you'll need to come back and look at those, and look at this video to watch the notes section or go through the notes on your own. They are on Canvas for you to be able to access them, so they're there for you. Otherwise, have a great day.